Then we had this one gig in Italy. The promoter said, "Oh, so tonight just play a little bit more commercial." And I was like, "Oh, shoot, I don't have any commercial music." And then it was my turn to play. 2,000 people in this club. And I played like Duck Sauce Anyway at the time. And no one knew what it was. And I was like, oh my God, I'm screwed.
Welcome to the Indie Pulse presented by Groover. I'm Dorian and we are at Baker Falls with LeBRON. How are you?
Great, good.
Can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, I come from Australia, lived in France and now living in the US. And LeBRON came from 10 years ago, longer actually, 15 years ago. A friend and I were making music and it was actually part of my last name and his last name, and we put it together and it sounded French because we love French house. Obviously the basketballer was called that and we thought, okay, people won't forget it. So we just went with it. And then we kind of faded, and then I was making music and had to post it on the internet, and it said title, artist, and I'm like, what do I do for the artist? I'll stuff it. I'll just say LeBRON. And I just went with it and it just stuck and you can't change it.
Yeah, it's hard to like rebrand. So once you've started, like it's good. And do everyone call you LeBRON, or do they call you by your first name? Do you hide it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to be called LeBRON, but because it just reminds me the whole time. But some people do call me that. A lot of people do call me that.
So you said you're from Australia. Where are you from in Australia?
From Melbourne.
How was it growing up in Melbourne?
Melbourne was great. Great place to grow up. Really diverse, like way of life. A lot of sport, a lot of music. Fantastic. The only problem was you're so far away from everyone else.
Yeah, you're so far away in the world from everything happening elsewhere. So were you connected to the local scene, or were you always looking at like music from elsewhere?
Yeah, I was connected with the local scene in the beginning. But after some time, like a couple of years, it was really hard to find the way you wanted to get into it. Like, it was really hard to find the music you loved in the end. And I was connecting with the music that I loved through the internet. And that was happening around the world. But to find that in Melbourne, it took a while.
What was your introduction to music? How did you get to love it?
Actually went through a period where I wasn't loving music. I didn't have any music that I could relate to, particularly as everyone did. I think we had like the rock and roll scene and like the emo screamo scene coming through, and I had no connection to that whatsoever. So when we were teenagers, all my friends were getting into it and I just couldn't connect. And then it wasn't until when I was about 16, some friends introduced me to like downloading music on the internet through blogs and everything. And I started discovering like a combination of like cool new disco stuff, like electro music, and my eyes and ears just opened to all that. And that's where I probably got started with the whole DJing.
Do you have a few memories of like some artists that like stood out at the time that made you think like, oh, I love that kind of music and I love that scene?
Yeah, for me, the French scene, like Daft Punk, Justice, Boys Noise from Germany, a whole movement of guys around that period were doing such exciting stuff, and it would seem like every week someone was releasing something new through the blogs, and everyone was scampering trying to, download the MP3s and like find the new latest craziest hardcore song. It was a really exciting thing.
So you've toured with great DJs, great artists. Can you tell us a bit more about some of these experiences and how it was like?
Yeah, well, I mean, like once upon a time I was a fan of some of these guys, and then getting the opportunity, sometimes I was invited by them personally to come and warm up for them. And thinking of my 18-year-old self back in the days, that one day I'd be playing in Paris back to back with someone like a Breakbot, was like, if you told me that at 18, I'd say, get out, no way. And then now we're good friends and we do back-to-backs all the time. And through that, like meeting their networks and just like some amazing people. And the music community is actually a really small community. It is really important to like connect with people, I guess, around the music scene, because some of these guys like Bon Entendeur have like, you know, had collaborations with some really famous people or interesting people from all walks of life. And yeah, it's all thanks to the music community.
How did you get to start like making some or DJing?
For me, I think I'm a very obsessive person, and I was obsessed with this music. And YouTube was kind of new at the time too. So that was the channel, I guess, for us to kind of explore like how these guys were making their music. There were some music videos and some like behind the scenes of them in the studio. And I think one time I got a glimpse of one of them using a program called Ableton. I didn't know what the hell that was, but I just remember Googling it and trying to find out as much as I could. And I ended up downloading it and then had no idea what I was doing, but I eventually made a few clips and like made some noises and started from there. Yeah.
Were you only doing it with your like a computer keyboard, or did you have already like some gear and everything that you started to buy? Or
definitely just the computer.
That's
Didn't even know what like MIDI controllers were or anything like that at the time. Again, like I guess back then, like we didn't have this exposure, particularly I didn't have any older brothers, or like my parents weren't into music. So I didn't have any knowledge of like electronic music gear whatsoever.
Did you start with like making music and like playing it live, or did you start like DJing? How did you like got into that whole, like, can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, well, for me, it was a bit of a combination of both. I discovered DJing and production, like beginning to DJ at the same time. And there was another program, Virtual DJ, that everyone had experience with, I guess, at some point. But that's where I really learned to mix, I guess. And in fact, many years earlier, I actually was a fan of, going on a bit of a tangent here, but many years earlier, while everyone was liking the emo, screamo stuff, as cheesy as it was, I was really interested in the Black Eyed Peas. And they had like these really funky songs. And I think at one point, early internet days, like different level of internet, you know, multimedia, flash, whatever it is, will.i.am put out like a remix website, and you could literally like mix together some of the stems from different songs. And that was my first real kind of realization of, oh, here's a channel you can mix different parts of songs together. And I was fascinated by it. And fast forward back to the virtual DJing, this was like that, but on steroids. And I absolutely loved it. I spent plenty of time trialing different things and like using the samples. And you didn't really have like the physical touch. You had to do everything with a mouse, but super fun to explore at that age. Eventually, like some friends were having house parties and like birthday parties, and that was our first opportunity. Us who were into like DJing and like producing music, those were like the first times we got to test our new skills and stuff we had made. The stuff we had made totally wasn't like acoustically ready for it, but we still gave it a go, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And you must have had fun at these like parties. Did you see it only as a hobby, or did you quickly start to think, okay, this could be something I could spend a lot of time on and I could spend a lot of my life on?
Yeah, well, honestly, I could only see it being a hobby. And particularly coming from Australia, you come from like such a limited market. And we were just having fun at the time. We were just like mucking around like with friends. We'd save our pocket money and like rent some gear for birthdays or for Christmas presents. Someone might get one CDJ or like a mixer. And I remember saying to my dad, who got me a mixer, birthday, he got me a CDJ, and for Christmas, he got me a mixer. And I was like, Dad, I kind of need another one.
Yeah.
And
now that you have a mixer, you need another
and I'm
CDJ.
like, it still doesn't work, Dad. You know, so I remember plugging in like a line from a computer just to like use the effects on the mixer. And I still loved it, but yeah, it was crazy.
And how did it go from there? How long did you stay in Australia and kept on like playing in Australia? And when did you like expand your market? Because you're saying, yeah, it's a small market, but then you moved around the world. Was it like because of music, or just like you moved around the world and you took this occasion to push your music forward?
Yeah. So for me, as I was saying, I was doing the house parties and then got into like club DJing when we all finished school, like 17, 18 years of age. And then we were kind of doing it, us and my DJ friends, we were kind of doing that until we were about 18, 19. But in Australia, we have our population's not so big. So the clubs and the venues, they need people coming through the doors. So they actually didn't care about what music you were doing. They just wanted you to be as popular as possible and bring people through. So it was pretty, it was a pretty soul killing experience to have to call up all your friends and nag them to come to the clubs every week just to watch you play like commercial music. I mean, commercial electronic music. You couldn't really explore like your own creative, like in my case, doing like some justice kind of music. So that happened for like another 2 years up until I was 20. I actually went over to Europe on a holiday. Didn't really go to any parties or anything like that. I just experienced Europe for the first time. Loved it. And then came back to Australia, just did music as a hobby. And then it wasn't until I was due, I had the travel bug and I really wanted to get back to Europe. And my best friend was living there at the time. This is fast forwarding a little bit now. I was like 24. And he said, he knew I was right into my music and I was posting on SoundCloud and stuff and I was getting good numbers. And he's like, why don't we turn this into a music tour and see if we can get you some gigs? And I'm like, no, that's not possible. That's not how it works. You need an agent. You need this, you need that. You need to be a professional, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, who says that? Why don't we try?
That's cool. Like, yeah, let's try it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically I had a Facebook at the time and I gave him the access, and he basically like did a post overnight when I was asleep in Australia, and he's like, hey, I'm coming over to Europe. Whoever wants to book me, reach out. We're taking up gigs. And I woke up in the morning and there were like 3 messages from like here, there, and another place. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and then the next day, a couple of weeks later, we did another prompt, and then got a few more messages. And before you knew it, we actually had like my 6-week holiday was actually a full-on like music tour, from varying gigs, from like big ones to little bar gigs, and it was great.
Was it the moment, or was there a moment when you realized, okay, I can do this on a long-term basis? Like I can play everywhere, I can play every week, and it could be great.
So we didn't jump to any conclusions. We just were living in the moment, and we were just like so surprised with like how professional everything was over in Europe and compared to Australia. And Australia, it's a very small time, but everywhere we went in Europe, people were like very passionately into the music that I would normally be too afraid to play to friends. I was playing out and expressing myself, and people were appreciating it. And then my friend Elliot, who became my manager in the end, we were negotiating like prices. And like initially we asked to bookers, you know, just a couple of, $100 and a couple of drink cards or something like that. And they were laughing. And they thought we were joking. And so we tested it a little bit more and pushed the price up a little bit more. And then we were like, hang on, this is enough money to like, look after our travel and like look after accommodation. And then some people offered to pay the accommodation and transport. So we turned it into like a neat little operation. And it went so well that when we went back to Australia, it was 3 months before we turned around and jumped back on a plane and did it all again. So yeah.
Was it when you decided to like relocate to Europe on a longer basis, or yeah?
Yeah, so I did like a couple of trips back and forth, and until maybe 2 years later, I said, I'm just going to give it a go and come and live over there. And yeah, managed to do it full time.
What was the music you were playing at the time, and what would you say was the difference between like Australia and Europe and like appreciating that type of music?
Yeah, so playing disco in Europe, it's very welcomed. Whereas Australia, it's a very, very niche thing in Australia. And, my parents' generation, they were more into like a rock and roll thing. And disco was not really, it was only commercial disco was really known, like Saturday Night Live. None of these B-side disco songs were known. So people aren't familiar with even just dancing to it in Australia. So.
And a big part of DJing is like digging music and digging new music and playing new music. What is your process to dig like new tracks, new music?
Yeah, for me, it's a very overwhelming process because it just takes so much time. So now I'm pretty organized with it. And life is pretty busy. You need a lot of time. When I was younger, I would spend hours at a time, like 6 o'clock in the evening through to like 4 a.m. just finding as much stuff as I possibly could. Whereas now I still spend a lot of time. Like when I sit down and do it, I have like a good 2-3 hour session.
And you said you're pretty organized. It's fascinating. So how do you organize your process? Like, do you have like your sources? Do you have like a whole like set of things you do to try to find tracks?
Yeah, well, it's hard to explain, but because I went through so many years of like just patchy like digging, I've kind of got a process now of like going back through my collection and finding like tracks I haven't played for 10 years or haven't even heard for 10 years, and then like getting them and then looking up their discography, and then going on to Discogs and seeing who produced them, and then just sifting through all that. And then, yeah, it's hard to explain, but yeah, there's some processes that mentally I go through. But yeah, trying to cover up all the patches that I missed like over the last 10, 15 years.
And how do you organize your USB key or your library? Like, how do you organize it? Like, do you like rank your tracks in a specific way? Do you tag them? Because like when you're DJing and you need to find like the next track to play, you don't have that much time. So how do you do it?
Oh yeah, it is so crazy. So firstly, like the new CDJs are amazing. How you can search through like two menus, the browse and the playlist section, and then the search section. So I often need to, I don't keep the best track of my collection, the best records. It's a bit all over the place. I kind of have like per month. And then if you need to find something that you downloaded 5 months ago, you're not sure whether it was like in the July folder or in the June folder, it all becomes very vague. So after you like play out a lot, I guess, then you can kind of remember playing that track at a certain venue or at a gig. So like maybe I remember even like visually, that gig in LA with like the red light, I actually can kind of remember that. And I color code sometimes, so I'll put like a little red. But if I'm desperately trying to find that track that I played then, I know I can browse to that set and it will be there.
That's very interesting what you're saying, because if we go back a bit, it means that when you're playing and when you're playing live, when you're playing a track, you you have this kind of like instinct of like, oh, I want to play that track. And then you're thinking like, when did I play it back and I can find it again? That's what you're saying, right? It's like,
yeah, it's funny. Like I remember like from previous gigs, what combination of songs goes really well. So not necessarily like one individual track, but like I remember a track out of a bunch of, I almost remember like a bunch of tracks. And then I remember whether it was like a more of a cheesy commercial kind of thing, or whether it was like a more techno kind of vibe. I kind of have a safety net to call on if that's what the crowd wants. I can like go back and find that. And then if I find that, I know I'm safe for like 5 songs, you know?
interesting.
Yeah. And then once I exhaust those 5 songs, it gives me time to do my little formula, which I look at the BPM and then the key, and then that reduces the amount of songs I need to search for. And then I can go freestyle from there.
So you've DJ'd a lot, but you also produce. Do you keep on producing a lot of music? Do you keep on releasing music?
Yeah, so like I've had a bit of a problem with that, which I'm not too happy with. I actually made a lot of music years ago when I was quite naive to like production and like, which was kind of like blissful because at least you're not listening for like technical faults or anything like that. You're just making stuff and just like going with it. But then once I started to learn about production more and like technical things, and even like musically as well. For me, it's been musical because like I want to be able to like match a verse with the chorus, and if it doesn't match, I'm not a pro musician. So for me, it's like so much trial and error, and I just can't get that sometimes. So instead of just going with it, I don't release it. But now after all this time, like many years, I think it's been like years since I've properly released music, I've found my formulas and I'm very confident now, and I'm about to push out like a ton of new things.
So about this new music that you're about to release, how would you describe it? Is it close to what you're also DJing, or is it different?
Yeah, so that was part of the complication I had as well. I wanted to make music that I could play out. And then that was very difficult, but now with my production skills now, I've finally honed that in. And unfortunately, I'm excited, but unfortunately no one's been able to hear that because I've kept all this to myself. But now I'm really excited to push that out. But the style, very disco influence, very soulful influence, but also I love a lot of music, like some techno to house. So I am making some stuff that is like completely the opposite of disco, but I guess it's still got like, I don't know, it's got some kind of like soulful signature to it somehow. And that's just how my brain works, I guess, when I'm putting this stuff together. It's a very happy, unconscious thing, which I'm proud of. But yeah.
So you said, you had this kind of block for a few years, not releasing music because you were thinking it was like not good enough compared to like what you were expecting to do. And now you've overcome that. Like, how did you overcome it? How did you come to that point?
Yeah. So like, firstly, I feel like the music that I love and I love listening to is like so like intimidatingly good. And I didn't want the people who listen to me DJ to all of a sudden hear my originals completely ruin my set. I was in a very negative mindset about that. I was worried what people were going to think. And then just after a lot of conversations with people, and like, I guess as much as this is a bad thing, but like doom scrolling, I guess, like my algorithm was quite good. I saw a lot of like motivational like music people talking about it, and they were like, you know what, like some people love watching love watching your journey. They like watching where you come from and how you progress over time. And so I thought, okay, you know what, I'm going to put something out and I can only improve. And with my production skills and everything now, and just I was very stubborn with production as well. I didn't want to use samples. I didn't want to use, like, I wanted to make everything from scratch, and it took forever to make songs. So it would take me like an hour to like carve like a bass sound. It would take me 30 minutes just to get a snare sound, and making it from scratch.
And you have so many choices.
Yeah, so many choices. And I guess the other thing is, like, I love organic music, like guitars and like natural pianos and like natural percussion. So like I was trying to remake organic music with a computer, and like brass and strings, trying to like mimic that like from scratch was horribly long. So now with samples, the sampling is so good now that like it actually saves so much time, and you can actually get the structure of the song. You don't have to worry about like tweaking the right like frequencies or anything like that. I mean, yes, you do still, but like it just saves so much time, and it's made the workflow process so much quicker.
So going back a bit to like playing live and the fact that you're playing a lot of sets and you've toured and you've played with great artists, do you have a few memories of some sets that you thought, wow, this was so cool, this is probably like the best set I've made, or the best moments I've lived, the best emotions?
Yeah, so like I do a lot of mixtapes. To start with mixtapes, I guess, like that would take a long time to put together, and I would, blood, sweat and tears would go into them, and I'd be so frustrated if something wasn't perfect, and I would feel that it would ruin the entire mix. And sometimes the moment I just finish something, I never listen to it again. Like I've listened to it like 30 times while I'm putting it together, and then I'm exhausted. I don't even like it anymore. And then I've got some people who like really love my stuff, and when I've caught up with them or met them, they've showed me some of my old stuff that I haven't heard in like 7 years or like 8 years or something. And I actually sat back and forgot what it sounded like, and I listened to it and I was like, wow, how did I do that? That is so crazy. Some real magic moments, and I was like, I really was proud of myself. But then on the live side of things, same thing, I guess. I guess like in hindsight, it's hard to tell like in the now because it's so stressful. Technically, I'm always like right. I'm really technically like all over it, and I don't get to enjoy the moment. But yeah, it's not until like later that night when I'm going to bed or like waking up the next morning reminiscing, like, oh yeah, that's great. And I record a lot of my sets as well. I take like a little iPhone app and record the sets, and I listen to some of the moments, and I'm like, wow, that was cool.
That's interesting. You're saying that when you're DJing, you're like so into it, you're not even enjoying the process. That's what you said. But do you think like, can you elaborate a bit on that? Like, is it because you're very concentrated or very like in your own world at that time, and so you don't even like process emotions? Or is it different?
Yeah, like I've seen videos of myself before, and it just looks, and same at live at the time, I feel in my head, I'm like, I'm not doing anything here. There's a lot of DJs who throw their hands in the air and like, dance and get into it. But me, when I watch myself back on footage, I look like I'm dancing horribly, or
that's not true.
I'm like, yeah.
I can say by watching your videos, that's not true, but I understand that. And it's interesting, like self-judging your own performance, I guess. It's tough.
Feel like, particularly when the light's on, and I feel like one scratch of the nose feels like, everyone's seen me pick my nose or something, It's probably the worst mindset to have, but also like I'm so occupied with the DJ gear that like I'm really trying to find like the perfect song next. That's why it's a big relief to remember like other sets where it's gone down well. But if you're in that situation where you've got 2 minutes left in the track or 1 minute left in the track, and you need to find the perfect song. There's a big dance floor here and you don't want to lose them. Or not so much a big dance floor. It's more like the medium dance floor, because then if you play the wrong track, you're screwed, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of time concentrating on that. And then you got 30 seconds looking into the next, straight away. Once that's playing, I'm looking into the next song. So I don't really get to enjoy the moment.
It's interesting because you're also playing a lot from what I'm seeing. And I'm wondering, like, if at some point, like, for like a few weeks you're not playing, do you miss it, or do you want to get back to it as quickly as possible? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I've gone through lots of periods where I've played like so much in the week, which is probably too much, and I like it, but sometimes you get bored because you play the same songs. Like, you don't intend to play the same songs, but there's some kind of algorithm that you subconsciously go down, and like you end up playing the same damn songs, and you're like, oh, how did I end up here? So sometimes when I start a set, if I play lots of times in the week, sometimes I just find a track in my USB that I've never played before, and I just start with that and just see where I go. But as I said, 20 minutes in, you're kind of playing familiar songs again, and you're like, ugh. But then going through periods like, you know, we all lived through COVID where we weren't DJing for a long time. And that was a very funny moment. I thought, great, here's an opportunity to do a lot of production. But then you didn't want to because you had no inspiration. So that's why, like, if you're out DJing and listening to other people's music going out, you get lots of ideas. So
Ever think about quitting?
absolutely. I mean, there have been ups and downs with everyone. But for me, one time, years ago, we were, what'd we do? We just played at this really good gig. I think we just played a couple of gigs. That's right. We played a couple of gigs and they were good. We had some momentum, and then we had this one gig in Italy, and it was a uni night. We actually were supposed to be playing at this festival, and this was like the side gig of the festival for us. And the setting was amazing. We got driven out there. It was like on Lake Como. It was so beautiful. And then we were sitting with the promoters, and then the promoters said, oh, so tonight just play a little bit more commercial. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't have any commercial music. I was playing off my laptop, which just has like almost like a set list. And it was pretty like underground too. So I kind of, while everyone's enjoying dinner, I pulled out my laptop and rearranged the set and tried getting the most familiar stuff at the top. And then it was my turn to play, and the guy before me was playing like seriously like top 40 stuff. And there was like 2,000 people in this club, like big open air club. And I played like Duck Sauce Anyway at the time, and no one knew what it was. And I was like, oh my God, I'm screwed. And I just watched the dance floor like disperse. And then I tried another one, and then it dispersed even further. And there was like, it was full, and then it turned into like little pockets of people. And I was like, oh no. And then I said to my mate, Elliot, my manager at the time, I was like, what's happening? Like, what's happening? And he's like, oh, people love it. People love it. He was just like, I'm like, I don't think so. And because I'm like head down, but I can see out of my peripherals. And then all of a sudden, the owner of the club, some big fat old Italian bloke, just came over and said, you off now, take him off. And I was like so gutted, and I was like, what's going to happen to me? Like, are they going to like...
It's like the worst nightmare that you can have as a DJ. It's like the story like that people tell you that you don't know exists.
Yeah, you just failed. Like, you really failed. And then I was having, like, within 5 minutes, I was speaking to my mate Elliot, and I was like, I'm just going to go back to Australia. I'm going to become no disrespect to a librarian, but like, I'm like gonna go become a civil worker, and like that's more safe than this. You know, you won't get as persecuted, you know, because this was gut stabbing. And yeah, just mentally I was like, look, I'm into a niche thing, and unfortunately there's no room for niche things in society. You just can't do them. And then we had a gig the following day in Serbia, and I hadn't really known of Serbia to be like a big disco place. And I was thinking, oh, I'm really doomed here. This is going to be another dead rubber. And then we had lunch with the promoter, and he was like, yeah, just do whatever you want. And I was like, oh, okay, well, all right. You know what? I really am. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to worry about like trying to chase the crowd or anything like that. And then it was actually 11 o'clock before I went on. I was backstage, and I pulled back the curtain, and there was no one in the club. And I'm just thinking, oh, it was in like this football stadium, a club inside the football stadium in Podgorica. And I was just thinking, oh, no, I'm done. I'm completely done. I'm definitely calling up like the job agency when I get back home. And then all of a sudden, it's like 5 minutes until my gig starts, and I just like had a beer and pulled back the curtain, went to go out, and it was full. And they were playing like Joey Negro, like an edit of Joey Negro. I didn't even know that song at the time, and I was like, people were bumping to it. And I'm like, oh my God. And it just gave me the biggest like wind. And I went on, and I just played the most underground like disco set. And we went from midnight through to 7 a.m.
Wow.
No rules. Just didn't even sleep. And then I just remember being in the car, like looking out, watching the sunset, driving off to the airport or however we left, just thinking, wow, what a roller coaster ride.
I was going to say, it's such a roller coaster, because we say that like in artist lives and DJ lives, it's like it's always like a roller coaster of emotions and experiences. This is like the most roller coaster story they can have.
Totally.
Like the worst gig of your life, and possibly one of the best ones then just following. So what do you think about it? Do you think you were ready to like face like the rejection sometimes, and sometimes like the approvals in such a good way?
Yeah, I mean, after coming away from that and speaking to people about it, like DJs you love, like some of my favorite DJs, like speaking to them, everyone's had dead rubbers, you know, everyone's had nights where you play to tables and chairs. You know, it's not your fault. Like, I don't mean to blame anyone, but like sometimes the promoters didn't promote properly. Sometimes it's the wrong night. Sometimes it's like a public holiday. Sometimes it's 40 degrees, you know, and no one wants to go down into a basement club with no air conditioning. And I mean, that's all happened to me, you know? So it's part of it, but I guess every now and again you got to keep pushing on, but every now and again you'll get like the best one you've had, you know.
And what's your mental process when you have like there's a really like bad gig or bad night, or for whatever reason?
It's a very deep hole you go in, because you start questioning everything. You question why you're doing it. You're questioning, you know, particularly with fads, like with popular music, popular trends of music. You know, you're like, if you don't fit into that, you feel very left out. But I guess you just got to have hope, and music kind of works around in like 15-year cycles. And if you keep doing your niche thing, then maybe year 12 of 15 might get round to your style. And if you instead of chasing the trends, if you're still true to that, and like, okay, it can be some dark years, but like 5 years of just slaving, becoming one of the best in your genre, all of a sudden when it's back in your genre, you could just get this massive wind just pick you up, and you'll get rewarded, you know. Things like that. You always have like fans like who who like give you constant like feedback and like really appreciative. That's kind of nice. And
What moment of the trend of your niche do you think we on right now?
it's funny, it's different in different parts of the world. And I think things like COVID and certain things that happen really shape where it goes. So like, I guess, I don't know, without breaking it down too much, right now we went through a disco period recently, but it was like very fast disco, like 130 BPM Donna Summer disco. And like, if you asked me 10 years ago, I never played anything above 120. I was playing house music at 120. And now 125 like is standard in a club. And you never would have thought that before. I remember starting, it was like 130 BPM was like kind of normal. And then I remember like half the years later, I was like, geez, I can't believe we played so quick. And then now we're straight back there. So in terms of the disco thing, the disco's always going to be around, which I love. There's some things happening, little spot fires in the UK, and France is always like very accommodating. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to my chapter in the US. Like Brooklyn and everything is like a massive world hotspot for really good disco.
Yeah, you just moved to New York. You relocated to New York. How are you excited about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like overwhelming because you want to like start straight away. But I've got to, I know a lot of people here, but like you want to like make the most of every opportunity. But again, I'm not super young. Like you need to sleep. You need to go out and network. You need to go out, there's parties here every night of the week and it's unsustainable. So you just got to be patient, I guess. And when you go out, you'll find things,
And off the record, there's a really great disco party on Sunday called TK Disco. It's really fun. And Knockdown Center.
Knockdown Center.
And it's during the day. I think I was thinking of going, so yeah, we'll see how we are after like the event on Saturday.
Oh, I know.
But it might be fun. It might be fun to
Absolutely.
go. Yeah. Apart from music, you must have done some side hustles or other jobs. Can you tell us a bit more about that part?
Yeah, so over the years, like I was going through a period of like coming back and forth between Australia and Europe, and the Australian season wouldn't be as good, and particularly like bouncing between two countries, like I was always, the moment I get my foot in one scene, I would basically, I'd be forgotten in the other. So like when I went back to Australia, I had to go back, and I knew friends who had companies, and I'd go back and work with them. I actually did like a little, I actually studied IT when I was in school, but then I later on went into like audio visual kind of stuff. And just did like freelance work with that.
Did you use those side hustles and those jobs to fund your music career?
Yeah, of course. Like firstly, I needed to like survive, like back in Australia. It was like a no-brainer. Like if I could work, I could work. Having said that, it did interfere, I guess, with like the time I had for doing music production, but that's what did finance a lot of big ventures I needed to make, like coming over to Europe to get to and from certain places. I'd finance like flights and stuff through that, and I'd need like a safety net of money just in case like gigs dried up. So I'd have like a little bit saved, I guess.
And what's your approach to that, to like kind of networking? Because it's a tough word, because in music, when you're an artist, when you're a DJ, it's sometimes difficult because you want to connect with some people that you admire or that are in your scene, but you don't want to be too pushy or you don't want to be like too there. So what is your take on that? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's I guess it's just it's a tough one, but I guess you don't want to be too fanboyish, I guess. that can be quite uncomfortable for everyone. But I guess one of the best things is just like hanging out with friends and mutual friends and getting both groups to meet, and before you know, like their friends to meet and your friends to meet, and that just like breaks the tension a bit. You know, all of a sudden you're talking to like this person's like girlfriend, and you're talking about football or something like that, you know, and you're not even like talking about your favorite person's music anymore, you know. You're talking about normal everyday things, just I guess on a personal scale, you know.
And I want to pick on that because sometimes these stories happen, like you end up like talking for an hour or 2 hours with like someone that you really like, and it's been a super cool moment. What do you do next? Like, you know, you sleep and the next day you're thinking about it, like, oh, I would love to like see them again or like talk to them again or anything. But same, you don't want to be too much or anything. So how do you deal with it? You just wait until the next opportunity, or?
Yeah, I guess that like sometimes you just gotta just accept it for that happening in that moment, and then when you get another opportunity next time, talk about the last time you saw each other, what you did after, you know, like, yeah, I guess you don't want to be, as I said, like too obsessive or too like pushy or anything like that, too fanboy, or I guess you don't necessarily want to talk about someone's like achievements non-stop, because I guess that's a story they've told 100 times. They probably get sick of telling it. Just talk about life stuff, you know.
How would you say is it important as an artist or as a DJ to go to events, to go to parties, and to go just hang out and not forcibly just going to the events when you're actually playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because like being a DJ is very hard on the body, and you can't like be there at all hours all through the night. It'll kill you, you know, particularly drinking and partying too much. But it is really important just to be present, like really important to just show support. There's nothing people like more than support. And they need numbers through the door. You're a number, you know, like just simple things like that, you know, and they'll do it to you.
Yeah, showing support, important, of course. And you talked about alcohol or everything that goes with parties or going, like, what's your approach to that, like going out a lot? And of course, as a DJ, you get like drink tickets, you know, so what do you do with this? And how do you deal with that part? I know it's like a sensitive topic, but it's also something that a lot of artists and I think a lot of DJs are asking about themselves, like, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like the local gigs are probably the hardest because you're in your local environment. There's like friendly people around. It's very easy to get carried away. So I don't know, like what I did in Australia when I had my car, it would be a good safety net. I would drink up until the amount I could still drive home under the limit. And I'd find myself drinking like 2-3 beers over a night, or 2-3 drinks over like an 8-hour night of being out. When I was like touring, when you have to wake up and go to the airport the next morning, yeah, I had blowouts and stuff, like some bad ones. But when you go through it, there's nothing worse than waking up like when you've only had 2 hours of sleep and you're feeling like shit. Sometimes it's just more enjoyable just to drink water, and you need to, you know?
One thing I want to ask you now is, you just moved to New York. What do you think is next for you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I've been to New York lots of times. And every time I come, I love the scene. Like people, the DJs are great. The dancers are amazing. Like you rock up to a party and it's like from the start of the venue to the end of the venue is just people like losing their mind, having a great time. Everyone's acknowledging the DJ and like listening carefully to like, you know, their transitions. And that's like one of the coolest things as a DJ, where if you know, so many times people judge you on like one or two tracks you play. You want to be judged on like everything you do, you know, and this is the best place in the world for it. So yeah, for me in New York, I'm excited to like network and like find some residencies and get into it. Coming up, I'm back and forth to Europe a couple of times this year. I have a great back-to-back with Breakbot and Irfan and Sophie Lloyd actually at a Cookie Records party.
Amazing.
That's what I'm really looking forward to. I've got a couple of like open air events, some festival things. So, and European summer, that'll be amazing. And then, yeah, really excited. And then a lot of music to release over the summer, which is going to be super exciting because I haven't done that in a while.
I have one last question for you. What would be one piece of advice you'd give to a young DJ that's just starting out?
I'd say really investigate, be curious. If you can, get a Pioneer controller, one of these basic controllers, because in clubs and the industry standard is using Pioneer. Really get familiar with the system and get used to Record Box. Just because if you want to become a DJ, if you can get your head round like the Record Box phrasing, the Record Box like terminology, it's going to hold you in good stead. When you go to like when you use like some of the big boy gear, like the club gear, it can be very overwhelming when you rock up and there's like 4 CDJs or some cases more and like a big mixer and it's dark. You can't see the buttons, you can't see the knobs. And it even happens to me. Sometimes I rock up and you've played on this gear time and time after again. And it's just a different lighting, a different ambience. And you still are like moving your hands in the wrong direction and like accidentally hitting the wrong buttons. But I guess the best thing is to just get familiar with like the layout. Get familiar with the different controllers going up and the different gear going up. Because those are buttons you need. And if you don't know where they are on the other equipment, then you can find yourself getting into some problems. And some people say it's like, I saw a meme the other day, it's like the first 15 minutes of any DJ set. I mean, it should be important, right? But for an amateur level, it's like the first 15 minutes are like trying to work out what piece of equipment's not broken, you know?
Yeah, the first 15 minutes of a set is figuring out what's going wrong with the equipment.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Funny. And like, you know, sometimes some crucial buttons. I use a lot of specific buttons. A lot of people learn off just like beat matching, make sure one player's playing and the other players just get that in timing and then do the mix. But me, I do loops and like, you know, need this function and use this function and certain effects. And quite often those buttons are like, not often, but like every now and again, they're not working. So you need to find like a solution. So just be prepared to like DJ and without certain features working.
That's a good piece of advice. Thank you very much, LeBRON.
Thank you.
This was the Indie Pulse with LeBRON. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.